Wow. Welcome, everybody, to Love in Action this morning. I'm Greg Newman, and I'm filling in for Katie Hendricks and also Michelle Yasuda. And I was thinking about it this morning, and what was coming to me was that since I did my first training with the Hendricks Institute back in '95, the thing that I love most about all these skills and all these tools is that they're always fresh in the moment for me. And it seems like there's no end to what I can discover and also what we can discover when we come together in a group like this. So lately, what I've been fascinated with is fear, specifically how fear can disrupt my loop of awareness or even keep me from getting into my loop of awareness in the first place. For example, right now, as I see people popping up on the screen and I loop out and I loop back and I see your attention coming back to me, I can feel myself freezing up a little bit. I can feel it kind of in my mouth and in my jaw the most. And when I freeze up in that fear reaction, I notice that I lose my loop and I start to lose that flow of connection that I feel in myself and also with the group. But if I bring in a little wiggling, little creative joint play into my joints, I can feel that frozenness starting to loosen up, and I can feel my loop of awareness starting to flow back again between myself and all of you. So this morning, I thought it would be fun as a group to play with the 4 fear reactions, to notice how those affect your loop of awareness, and also to play with each of the 4 fear melters, so that we can discover how those affect your loop of awareness and interrupt the fear pattern, and also allow you to open up your loop of awareness again. So go ahead and pick somebody on the screen in the group that you can start to loop your awareness with. Noticing something about that person. Maybe it's their facial expression, their energy level. And then looping back to yourself, bringing your attention back to your own body sensations or breathing. And then let your loop continue to flow with this person, back and forth, noticing them, noticing you. And now imagine that something happened and you got afraid, and go into a fight reaction. You can even make a couple of fists, raise them up in the air, tighten your jaw, tighten your shoulders, and notice what happens to your loop of awareness in fight. Notice what happens with your breathing, your sense of feeling connected with yourself or another person. And you can even try to loop your awareness when you're in fight. Notice what it's like to try to loop when you're in fight. And now let's bring in the fear melter for fight, which is ooze. So let your shoulders and your hips and your whole body start to ooze. Let your breath come back in if you like. And notice what happens to your loop of awareness now as you loop back out to that person. Noticing them and noticing you. What's it like when you're oozing and looping at the same time? Just noticing what that's like for you. Excellent, excellent. And then choose another person on the screen that you can start to loop with. And let your awareness loop out to that person, noticing something about them. And then loop back to yourself, your own experience, your breathing, your feelings or a body sensation. Just letting that awareness circulate however you like between you and that person. And now imagine that something happened and you got afraid and you go into a flee response. And the way to do that is to start to turn away and pull away, and maybe even take a step out toward the door. And as you do that, notice what happens with your loop of awareness. Notice what happens with your breathing, your sense of feeling connected with yourself and available to connect with this other person. What I'm noticing is that when I start to flee, my awareness goes up and to the right, just out of here. And I really don't have any awareness to turn back to the person that I'm looping with. It's like I've lost the loop almost entirely. Just notice whatever you notice about fleeing and how that affects your loop. And then let's bring in the fear melter for flee, which is root. So go ahead and turn and open toward the person again. And let yourself root down into your legs, feeling yourself rooting down into your feet, feeling your feet connecting with the floor. You might even imagine roots spreading down through your feet into the earth. And you can add your breathing back in if you're still holding your breath. Good. And notice what it's like for you to root and loop at the same time. How does that affect your loop of awareness when you're rooting? What I'm noticing is that I feel an openness and a fullness at the same time. It's like I'm extending out and getting wider at the same time, just wrapping around, very full and solid and ready to engage. And just notice what you notice about rooting and looping at the same time. And now choose another person in the group that you can loop with and let your awareness loop out to that person. Notice something about their face, perhaps what they're wearing, maybe whether their head's tilted one way or the other. And then looping back to yourself, your own body experience, feelings, breathing. And letting your loop of awareness continue to circulate between you and this other person, however you like. And now imagine that something happened and you get afraid and you go into a freeze reaction. You can do that by tightening all your muscles, holding your breath, and not moving at all, just being frozen. And notice what happens with your loop of awareness when you're frozen. Notice how the other person looks to you when you're frozen. And notice your sense of connection or disconnection with yourself and the other person. What I'm noticing is that when I'm in freeze, my awareness freezes with me. It just feels solid, like it doesn't want to move or maybe just come out an inch or two from my body. Just notice whatever you notice about freeze and how that affects your loop of awareness. And you can try to loop from freeze. See if it's possible for you to loop from freeze or whatever you notice about that. And let's bring in the fear melter for freeze, which is wiggle. So go ahead and let some wiggling come into your joints, your jaw, shoulders, hips, wrists. You can make it as big or as little as you like to make it. Notice if your breath shifts as you start to wiggle. And then let yourself come back to loop of awareness, looping out again to this person. And notice what it's like to loop when you're wiggling, bringing some gentle movement into your joints. What I'm noticing is that there's almost a playfulness or a bounciness that I can feel that's sort of coming out into the space and bouncing around with the other person and coming back to me, almost like sparkles bouncing and opening new possibilities. Oh, that one feels really good to me. So notice whatever you notice about looping and wiggling at the same time. And then choose another person that you can loop with in the group. Let your awareness go out to that person, noticing something about them. looping back to yourself, noticing something about your own experience, and letting your loop of awareness circulate between you and this other person, however you like. And now imagine that something happened, you got afraid, and you went into a faint reaction. And the way to do that is just to imagine all of your energy draining down your legs, through your feet, and into a big puddle on the floor. Getting groggy and foggy and having a hard time thinking or putting words together. And notice what happens to your loop with this person when you're in faint. How does that affect your loop, your breathing, your sense of feeling connected with yourself and with this other person? I notice for me that it's like my awareness faints down with me and goes out into that big puddle on the floor. And the person I'm looping with seems so far away and distant, and that there's like no sense of being able to connect with that person. So let's bring in the fear melter for faint, which is love scoops. So go ahead and reach out into the space around you and scoop up plenty of love, an abundance of love, however you'd like to scoop it up, and bring it to wherever in your body you'd like to bring that love. Scooping love, taking it wherever you'd like to receive it. You're scooping, and then come back to looping. So you're scooping and you're looping. And noticing what it's like to scoop and loop with this person at the same time, how that changes your experience, your loop of awareness, your sense of feeling connected with this person. What I'm noticing is this warmth I can feel in my chest, in my belly, even in my throat and my face. It's like a warmth and a love that gets extended out and envelops this person and envelops the whole group and starts to come back to me. It's like this just warm, beautiful, luscious feeling of being in this circulating flow of love and appreciation and awareness with this other person. So as we're coming to a close for today, see if you'd be willing to loop your awareness and love out to the whole group. So scanning around, maybe noticing somebody you haven't noticed yet, and letting your love flow to the whole group as a whole. And noticing what that's like to be in a group, with a group, aware of a group that's aware of you, and being in your loop of awareness. All righty. Well, I want to say thank you all for playing this morning. I had a really good time. I hope you did too. This was really fun. And Darlene is going to keep the Zoom link open for a little while if anybody would like to stay on and share discoveries and make some new discoveries too. So I'm going to be playing with this as I go about the rest of my day, noticing when I'm with people like, okay, I froze up, I lost my loop, and coming back to my loop again, just continuing to rewire all of my fear reactions and invite you to join me wherever you are out there in the world today. Thank you again, everybody.
Thanks, Darlene and Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
And a shout out to Darlene for support today.
Thank you both very much.